And I came
Here
in
we
at a good point because I'm a big proponent of educating people on coffee and caffeine and why it's not a health drink.
Oh,
So,
tell us more what you think.
well, I have a very specific journey into this via addiction to food, sugar, carbs, and there's there's a lot to overcome. Um, Hi, Dr. Kiltz. There's a lot to overcome with just that. And I get it. And I like what you said that people use coffee like as a crutch or a bridge. And whatever you need to do to stay consistent is great. But when you're ready to level up and you're really thinking long and hard about what misinformation we've been given about the addictive caffeine and coffee, just like we have a lot of misinformation about other things. And people say, well, it's supposed to be good and it lowers my blood pressure, doesn't it? Well, there's a lot of information out there about um, the decrease oxygen to the brain immediately following the coffee and it binding to adenosine receptors and it leaching minerals and it not being a fan of your microbiome. There's a lot. And so I just try to, and I know a lot of people just say, don't take my coffee. You can't. I live for my coffee. Well, you know what? I loved coffee too. And I gave it up about 10 years ago. Well, fully the caffeine part of it. And then back then I was like, well, I guess decafs should be okay. And then I realized, you know what? None of that's okay. It's a seed, it's not a bean, and it's roasted and we're crushing it and we're pouring boiling water over it, and then we're drinking it daily, if not multiple times a day. And you don't realize, but you're going through withdrawal when you're feeling tired and lethargic. And it's just, perpetuating the addiction. And then I'll just throw out one more thing before I stop on the little coffee rant, is that I have spoken at length to a number of different addiction specialists like Vera Tarman, Bitten Johnson, and there's a lot of information out there that people who are trying to give up one addiction um, will have a much, much lower success rate if they're also still on another addiction, meaning typically caffeine. And so, I mean, I just take that seriously. I have so many people that say, I know what I'm supposed to do. I just can't stick to it. I know what I'm supposed to do, but it's so hard. Well, what's going in your mouth? Is it leading to health or harm? And if you cannot make that decision for yourself, you've already researched this long and hard, I'm sure, by listening to podcasts, watching videos, reading, right? And you understand the reasoning behind why we're not putting seed oils in, why we're not putting gluten in and grains, and for most of us, not even any vegetables, right? You get that and you've researched it and you know it. And then if you fall back in to the ice cream, the cookies, the pasta, the pizza, whatever it is, chips, bread, whatever your DOC, drug of choice is, then therein lies the definition of an addiction, doing something that you know is harmful to you and you're doing it anyway. So I just try to really be the just the messenger of information where maybe when you're at that point where you start thinking, maybe I should think about this, and that you're willing to give it up, just do a challenge, do it for 90 days. And then and then a lot of times, the coffee is just a vehicle. Like I kind of heard some of what you were saying for the cream. And of course, those lovely, people are taking their frother and getting that protein powder that's sweetened with stevia. And then that's a whole nother ball game with with the sweeteners. And again, it's a tough one because it becomes your treat, it becomes your dessert, it becomes your crutch. And I get it. There's that ritual, the warmth, the smell, the taste, all of that combined. And it's something that you cling to for dear life. Like you don't want to give it up. But I have to say, in a lot of my experience, that one thing that you most don't want to give up is typically the one thing that will give you most benefit by giving it up. So have an open mind, believe in yourself that you can do it, and become more educated that this really is not something that's healthy to put in our bodies every single day and oftentimes multiple times a day.
Yeah, 100, but we completely agree. I think it's a shame you didn't jump on about 5 minutes prior to that, where we were talking about the detrimental impacts of acrylamide and mycotoxins. So Stephen and I are generally now coffee-free. I'd admit it's been an addiction for me for many years. And I think it's probably the last thing on the list of things. Exactly as you say, knowing that it's not helping me and it's only harming me. But I used to look at the benefits. I would always, exactly what you say, this is my little treat, I'm not doing this. I would look at the benefits of it blocking the adenosine receptor and the ergogenic properties. But I would never resign to the fact that it was causing damage until it started to cause damage. And it was causing neuromuscular problems. I was suffering with conditions that were similar to motor neurons disease. I was getting severe pain in my legs, both front and back. My nerves were firing constantly. It was affecting the way that I walked, my gait. I couldn't lift my leg high enough to walk upstairs. And I was drinking an awful lot of coffee. Only 4 or 5 cups per day, but each cup contained 2 double shots, so the equivalent of 20 cups per day. Now, acrylamide is accumulative.
It's so funny. It's so funny. You literally have said with a straight, serious face, only 4 or 5.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah. I was like, and I thought, holy crow.
Yeah, but this was causing a big problem. So as you rightly say, coffee is not your friend. It's a toxic compound. It is a plant. And yeah, if you can be without it, then drop the coffee. I'm 4 weeks completely coffee free. 4 weeks and 2 days, dropped with no problem at all because of the conditions that it.
Well, see, there you had your motivation, your why that was making you cry. That said, all right, now I have to. So it's important though for people to think about the hidden types of things that are going on, like the bone density, the osteoporosis type issues with the minerals, that, you don't discover that till it's too late,
Okay, we got a couple of questions here. Lisa, in regards to the sardine fast, which maybe you want to just sort of summarize for people, can I swap them for a Wild Planet white anchovies?
Yeah, I get this type of question a lot as far as, can I do this instead of that? I mean, the whole intent of the sardine challenge, I like to call it a sardine challenge instead of a sardine fast. It seems crazy to use the term fast with what you're eating. But yeah, you go, the original Dr. Boz 72-hour sardine challenge was just you eat sardines when you get hungry, and you wait till you get hungry again and you eat as many cans as you want throughout the 72 hours. And there's just something very magical about sardines and fish in the sardine family. So herring, mackerel, but I say you got to at least do an initial sardine challenge and measure your glucose and your ketones, see what your weight does and see how you feel. And then I would experiment with anchovies because anchovies tend to be really salty. I'm not sure exactly if they're in the same family as the sardines. I do put anchovies when I make my sardine bisque. I do anchovies. I mean, sardines, herring, half a can of anchovies, and some butter and some clam juice or water. and whisk it up with an immersion blender. It's amazing. And I call that my sardine adjacent challenge. So if you're going to go all in on Wild Planet white anchovies, then you just have to name it your own anchovy fast or anchovy challenge, and see what your results are. Because I'm not sure, because I haven't had anybody do full on anchovies for 3 days.
Brilliant. Now, this is obviously relating to your area of expertise completely. A question: dry eye and cataracts, are they reversible?
Yeah, so we have to think about root cause, right? And I have definitely firsthand experience with patients who were, I mean, it's a pretty rare patient who's going to sit in my chair. They say, I've got dry eye. I'm going to look and do a couple tests. Yes, you have dry eye. All right, go home, clean out your cupboards, clean out your fridge and your freezer. And this is what you're going to do. You're going to go carnivore, right? Like, they're going to look at me like I've got 5 heads. So my experience with this is in people who have gone to carnivore for other reasons, but also had a significant dry eye problem. And so many people have written to me, knowing that I'm an eye doctor, and said, you got to hear this. This is better. This is better. Their glaucoma was reversing. Their dry eye went away. Their floaters went away. And with cataracts, I'm not so sure if it's a matter of halting the progression of them or being able to actually reverse it, because the glycolysis of sugar and the glycation that happens, and it makes the lens have opacities in it, cloudy areas. I'm not so sure if that can rearrange back into clarity. I can hope. I have had a couple people who say, when I went in for my follow-up checkup, my doctor was amazed. My vision was a little bit better, but I have not heard anybody say, yeah, my cataracts are gone. I've been eating this way for this amount of years. And that's another thing. It's patience. We've taken 40, 50, 60 years of feeding our bodies trash. And then we all of a sudden go to this nutrient dense, optimal human diet. And we're like, I've been carnivore for 6 months and I still have, like, yeah, really? That's like a little blip on the radar. You got to just keep going and keep like taking in and realizing all of the positive benefits that are happening along the way, and just visualize yourself getting healthier. And yeah, that's for sure the dry eye, a dense cataract that's ready for surgery. I'm not so sure that anybody's flipping that around.
No. Brilliant answer. Thank you for that. Dr. Lisa, I have heard some say sugar is a drug. Can the same be said for sweeteners?
Yeah, well, my famous saying with the sweeteners, no matter what kind of sweetener it is, I don't care whether they get around this natural sweetener. So they say, oh, it's no artificial sweeteners, and it has stevia or monk fruit or whatever it is, right? But a sweetener is a sweetener. And if we're calling sugar versus anything other than sugar, what's called alternate sweeteners, all of that, my saying is, it's just like changing seats on the Titanic. You're off of your sugar drug and you're onto the other, and everybody's hooked on their flavored electrolyte drinks every single day. They got to get them in. Well, why? Because they gave up sugar, because that's not carnivore. But guess what they get to have? I get to have this sweetened drink every day, and the sweetened protein powders in my coffee, and the sweeteners in my, whatever kind of dessert we're making or trying to come up with. But when any taste of sweet hits the sweet sensors on your tongue, there's still the same reaction and the same addiction. And I defy anybody to think, if they think that they're overcoming their addiction and getting rid of their cravings if they're putting sweeteners in any form. And Diet Coke's a big culprit. Chewing gum is a huge culprit. I have people say, "Oh, I don't do any of that stuff." And then I'll say, "All right, well, what do you do? What's during the day?" And then it finally comes out that they chew gum. And I go, "Oh boy, you know what? Your jaw moving in that chewing action is signaling to your brain that food is coming down. Chewing gum is not a healthy habit. And think about it. Why are you doing it? Oh, well, I'm in close contact with people and my breath." I'm like, no, 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 no. No excuse. That's silly. You go and you get rid of all of your gum, and they're going, "Oh my God, it's in my car, it's in my purse, it's in my desk drawer, it's everywhere." And they realize how much they're popping this just to keep getting that sweet hit. And it's a tough one to give up. It really is.
Thank you for that. This one's very tongue-in-cheek, I think. Grumpy Cat, what are your thoughts on eating Oreo cookies to lower the LDL cholesterol?
Yeah, all those are just really kind of fun, interesting science experiments. I mean, how about, wasn't there a guy that lost a lot of weight, eating Twinkies and,
Yes.
all this stuff. So, but we don't want our LDL low. Hello, we don't. Okay, so yeah, let's not do the cookies or lower our LDL. Lower LDL is a higher death rate. And people have to, I mean, I know everybody's like up in arms about this whole meat eating thing and so much red meat and carnivore. And how could that, what if my cholesterol's this and my triglycerides? And it's like everybody's so obsessed with it. But why would our bodies do something so detrimental to it when we're eating an ancestral diet? And, I just say it's like, I don't know, I've been eating meat for over 15 years. I've carnivore since March of 2009. And I'm here still to live to tell about it. And, I really feel that the obsession with, I like to tell people, just don't test. Just don't. Who needs a blood test? We didn't do blood tests thousands of years ago. Why are we testing our blood? I trust my body. I really do. I mean, I'm so convinced after so much of what I've seen and heard and read, even through my journey, but so many others now. It's just amazing how this movement is really taking off. And, more and more people know what it is. Whereas when I started doing this, people thought I was like flying my freak flag. Like, what the heck is going on? You think not eating fruit and vegetables healthy? You're rather silly. But yeah, the cholesterol one gets me heated up because it's like, oh, you know what? You just have to go down the rabbit hole and figure this out. Yeah, there's so much information out there that is definitively showing that it's so bad to go on a statin, and it's so bad to even to have a low LDL.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Nick Norwitz, who did that experiment, even at the very beginning, he said, look, this is to be provocative. So, that was the whole point, to get the traction. Of course, here it is, a little joke about it, but it gets people talking about LDL. And I think, the point I took away from it was, if you've got high LDL and by eating biscuits it gets lower, does that indicate you're doing something to improve your health? I don't think so. But anyway, right. You walked into a nice question because you mentioned fruit and veg and all that, and people thinking you're a bit mad. So Andy is saying, still would like your thoughts on fermented veg being added.
Yeah, I'll just give it from my perspective. When of course, I've done this for a long time. And when I started hearing little things about kefir and kimchi and fermented vegetables, I was thinking, well, why do I need that? Why would I want to include that in my diet? And is it necessary and is it beneficial? Um, I'll just say I'm still not eating fermented vegetables. Um, and I just, from everything I've seen and from my own experience, I have really no need to think that I need that.
Absolutely. Right. Rich, you've been very quiet. Do you want to dive in at all?
Yeah, you've told me off, so I'm having a pout. No, I'm
What did I do?
no, I'm joking. I'm joking. I think how long are we in now? 17 hours approaching. We've been live for currently, Lisa. Or coming up towards. So I think that's just taking a little toll. And I'm listening. I love listening to the advice, but I completely agree. I don't believe that there's a requirement to eat any veg, even if it is fermented. The fact that you have to ferment it in order to kill off a lot of the phytoalexins, the plant toxins, should tell you all you need to know. In regards to the gut microbiome, we've mentioned this a number of times tonight, but the alpha diversity in the gut can be increased by eating an all animal protein diet. I recently had Ben Azadi on a podcast who went from being keto into carnivore for 90 days and having a fairly good microbiome. It improves with carnivore over 90 days. And I think, Lisa, you've hit the nail on the head. Why would you put a compound in if it's not conferring a benefit? What is the point in doing so? So no, I'm not a lover of fermented veg personally myself.
That's great. Right. So was there anything from Dr. Lisa's answers you wanted to do a follow-up question, Richard?
No, fantastic.
Right.
I think, I don't know if the questions are just drying up because it is 1 a.m. almost in the UK. But I know we've got slightly less live than we did several hours ago, but there's lots of questions that were. How's the chat looking there for questions, Steve?
Well, I'm just looking at here, but don't forget where Dr. Lisa is. It's not midnight. It's
very true.
Yeah, it's
it is.
closing in on 8 o'clock in the evening here.
No, fantastic.
Well, so we should be getting some more questions, but I mean, they were pretty quick. The thing is with Dr. Lisa is she just answers.
Clear and concise. Yeah.
Clear and concise.
What would your protocol be, Lisa, for someone who is? Would your protocol be the same for someone who is coming from a severely overweight background and incredibly metabolically unhealthy to someone who is fairly healthy, just slightly misguided? Would it be the same protocol, just a full hard stop in regards to cutting out all of these compounds, or would there be a case for incremental changes?
A lot of that is really determining where the person's come from as far as their sober behavior around food or not, or their dysfunctional relationship with food. Let's see, how else can I put it? Because herein lies the problem. When we're talking about tapering down with somebody like that, it would be like going into alcohol rehab and saying, okay, we're going to switch to light beer for this like a month. And then we're going to go to every other day. And then, then we're going to switch you to O'Doul's, and it doesn't work that way. And for people who don't understand that this is actually a really true addiction that's extremely difficult to overcome because it's everywhere in our world and we're triggered all the time and everything centers around food. Where are we going? What are you bringing? What are we having? There's so much between our socialization, our family, our traditions. And when you are somebody who is drawn to overeat, binge, secretively eat these foods that you've become addicted to because most of the time there's always another reason. You're either filling an emotional void, you're turning to it for comfort, you're turning to it to numb something. And these are learned behaviors, long-standing learned behaviors. I say I became an addict probably when I was about 6 years old, and I was given an easy bake oven. And that was a little kid toy that had a light bulb, and you pack it with water into a batter, and you slide it in this plastic oven that's now sitting over the light bulb. And yeah, I think that was the start. And then getting on my bike and riding to the 5 and 10 store with my friends and getting pixie sticks and Jolly Ranchers and Bazooka, and it just kept going. And so those kind of relationships with food, and then the chemical and physical addiction that some of us get, is extremely difficult to overcome. And so in answer to your original question here, many people really need the rip the Band-Aid off. And the more you limit their choices, the more freeing it becomes for them. And that's like the start of, let's say, somebody being told, do B, 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 and E, right? The Dr. Berry's beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, right? You're given a structure. You're given foods that typically people have sober behavior around. I don't have sober behavior around bacon because it's not safe. If I've made it, it's getting eaten. But that's why, like, the Lion diet works so incredibly well. Ruminant meat, salt, and water. It's so simple. It's so fulfilling. It's so satiating. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's like people say, oh, you couldn't do that to somebody. How are they ever going to survive? How are they going to live? Like, it's a beautiful, beautiful way of eating. And it's, again, for a lot of people coming from such a disordered background, it becomes such a freeing, peaceful, safe space when they know they're going to be nourished. They're not starving themselves. They're not restricting. They're able to eat and just keep going, embrace it and keep going. And then when you get down to your goal and you want to decide if you can add other things back in, that's one of the best ways to go at it. People who come at it from keto and of course, keto is just a very thrown around word, and I hate that about it, but let's just call it standard keto, where people are searching for recipes and searching for mimicking foods of things they used to indulge in, whether it's waffles or pancakes or, keto brownies or keto pudding or keto, fill in the blank. Anybody who really has let's just call it a broken relationship with food, will actually have trouble now. At some point, they will get to a certain level where they're not progressing. Why? Because they keep looking for the next latest, greatest recipe, and they make it, and then they don't stop eating it, and it calls their name just like the other things did. And you can't tell me, like, Ben and Jerry's in the freezer is similar to the Halo or whatever keto ice cream they have. It still calls your name, right? And same with anything else that's mimicking of those foods that we were so drawn to eat and overeat. It's very, very difficult to expect yourself to really have a whole different identity around food. And I'm not saying it's just, everybody say, well, it's so cliche of, I'm going to eat to live and not live to eat. Yeah, I get that. But you know what? We have to fit in with our friends, our family, our holidays and all that. And we have to understand that food is still food. Food is still an entity that is so pervasive in our social lives. And when you think about it, it should just be food for eating for hunger. And it's really changed so dramatically from that with all of the toxic, poisonous, addictive foods that we have in our food system. And yeah, I know it's so hard because I started out, I don't think I would have been able to transition into carnivore without cheese at the beginning. And cheese was my friend because I thought, God, I'm giving up everything. At least give me cheese. But then I, over time, very, very much understood that cheese is addictive with the casomorphine, the opioids, right? And it's inflammatory. And it also, I know you've already gone over this ad nauseum, I'm sure, but that there's such a component of it for me of, again, it's in the fridge. I'm having an emotional event and I'm going to open the fridge and I'm not making a steak. I'm melting some cheese and frying some cheese and adding lots of cheese into my ground beef. And then I have a hard time moderating how much I am eating of it, right? Because now it's ooey and gooey and delightful. And, it's a whole different ball game. All right. How about herbs and spices? I love spicy food and there's only real small amounts. Yeah. Yeah. So Neville, I've always used spices and I've also used hot sauce, mainly because I didn't come to this with major joint issues or autoimmune issues. If I was that type of person, then yeah, you would need to be a little cautious because of the peppers, which are a nightshade, but they're really, those of us who tolerate that and are not overcoming a significant autoimmune issue, the ingredients are really pretty clean. It's peppers, vinegar, and water. The spices, yes, they're a plant. And ideally, would we just use salt? Yeah. But, some small amounts of plants are medicinal too. And I don't think it's that dramatically, deleterious to us for having some spices.
Cool. If a person was to cheat one meal, does that wreck all your previous carnivore, or can you just go to carnivore again and not lose much, if any of the benefits?
Yeah, well, so from my world and my viewpoint, from the people I coach, because like I said, it's mainly people who are, they are perpetual relapsers. And so I'm going to put that in the category of a relapse, a cheat meal. Again, what are we putting in our mouth? Is it leading to health or harm? So we decide to have a cheat day because a cheat meal turns into a cheat day, which turns into a cheat weekend. And I'll start again Monday. And then some people have a hard time even weeks or months later still getting out of what I call the carb ditch. And so I just have to say, I really think the whole thing with the cheat meal has to be where you start understanding that this is a relapse back into your drug and you're just getting another hit and then trying to abstain again. So that's, I know I'm a tough one as far as that, but it's just because there's so many people I know who are in this type of situation. And I try to at least get your thought process going in that direction that, maybe she has a point. Why am I eating this if I've already decided it's not healthy?
Yeah. And I think the analogy a lot of people use is like an alcoholic. You wouldn't say to an alcoholic, yeah, have a couple of drinks at the weekend. You're going to be okay, because that's just not the done thing. So, but when it comes to food, it seems like you get a free pass, but actually it's addictive for some people to do that, cheating. So
Yeah.
I think that tough love is worth doing for some people, definitely.
Yeah. And why take a step backwards when you really have a goal in mind? And, if you're looking to achieve optimal health. So, well,
Okay.
Stephen, I'm going to have to bug off because I have an 8:00 meeting. I'm sorry, but
No
Okay.
worries. Been an absolute pleasure,
Okay.
Lisa.
No worries. Yeah, I'm
Coming
sorry about I'm sorry about the wrong link. So that's
yeah,
sorry.
I was like, there's got to be something wrong. I'm hearing you guys chatter, and then I'm thinking, where? Why aren't they seeing me here?
Yeah,
So,
sorry about that.
no problem. All right. It was great joining in. Thanks
Yes.
for having me.
Thanks again, Lisa. Have a
Okay.
fantastic day. Take care.
Yep. Take
See you
care.
soon.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.